The movie begins with a gunshot in the woods, and two brothers named Pedro and Jamie hear this. Jamie says, "Is that coming from our land?" Pedro replies, "No." Jamie says, "There may be a poacher in the woods." On this, Pedro says no, as poacher does not shoot so much. Therefore, Pedro and Jamie step outside their house to look into the matter properly, as they consider that something wrong is going on their land. But all this was happening on Ruiz's land, so both the brothers think of going there at dawn. As soon as it's morning, Pedro and Jamie with their dogs reach the place where it was shooting last night. Upon reaching there, the duo finds a corpse of a brutally killed man. It seemed like that someone had slashed him in the middle. The duo suspects Ruiz of doing this. Nearby the corpse, Pedro finds some equipments, which both the brothers inspect carefully. Jamie suggests to Pedro that they should inform Ruiz, as it is his territory. Pedro finds a diary there, containing Maria's photo, meaning someone was heading to Maria's house. This prompted Pedro and Jamie to head off towards Maria's decrepit shack. Pedro approaches her and asks her if she heard last night's shooting there. "We looked around the place and came across this diary through which we got to know that you were about to receive someone's visit." She tells both the brothers that a cleaner was about to visit her house to kill her oldest son named Uriel. Maria states that the cleaner has to kill Uriel. However, the cleaner has not arrived so far. Hearing these weird words, Pedro steps into the room where Uriel was lying in the bed with the rotting body. Meaning Uriel is possessed and he is about to give birth to a demon. Uriel's younger brother reveals to the duo that Uriel is possessed and he has been rotten for a long time, and they had been awaiting the cleaner to dispose of Uriel. They were afraid of speaking about it to anyone and were afraid of getting kicked off by Ruiz and the neighbors. Pedro asks her if she has reported this. Then Uriel's younger brother replies, "A year ago or more." Following this, both the brothers leave from there and reach the local police station to inform all about this. The cops don't believe what Pedro says because most cases of possessed ones are fake. Pedro angrily tells the cop that Uriel is dying and he is swollen and he is a pussball now. The senior cop tells Pedro that Ruiz has killed the man whose dismembered corpse he found in the woods. "Leave this matter to us, as we are at the end of this world. Why would there be a possessed one here?" Upon being ignored by the cops, Pedro and Jamie call upon Ruiz and tell him everything about what came to pass at the police station. Pedro informs Ruiz that the police say that they wouldn't come to see the rotten Uriel, as they think that it's not their problem. Ruiz says, at first, the demon makes the animals go crazy. Then, they even make the dead ones crazy. A possessed one lives here, and that is doing all this. At night, Ruiz goes to Maria's holding a rifle in his hands. Probably he is here to kill Uriel. Grudgingly, he points his gun at Uriel, who begins to provoke Ruiz to shoot him. Maria urges Ruiz not to kill Uriel, as he will take their souls after dying. It has to be done by a professional, not by an ordinary man. Ruiz says, "As soon as all of you arrived here, you contaminated everything." Here, the demon inside Uriel's body requests Ruiz to kill him before he moves to his wife's womb and possess the life growing inside of her. He tells Ruiz he will be the first to get killed by him when he comes into this world. Therefore, Ruiz returns from Maria's for the sake of his family. Ruiz has been inside his car throughout the night. His pregnant wife arrives there and asks after him. Soon, Pedro and Jamie also show up there and say, "We have to take Uriel away from here, as keeping him here is not safe." Ruiz gets off the car and says, "The rotten must be removed from here before it rots the rest." He asks Pedro to help him in this delicate matter, as Pedro also has a family. Saying this, Ruiz, Pedro and Jamie step into Uriel's room. All of them try to lift the swollen and filled with pus body of Uriel, but Uriel is too heavy to be carried out, so he falls off the sheet. Once again, the trio efforts to carry Uriel out and succeeds in doing so. They put him on the pickup truck and go away to dispose of him. On the way, they almost ran over a boy. Now, all of them arrive at a vast field where they think of ditching Uriel's decomposing body. They go to unload Uriel from the truck, but Uriel was no longer there, as he has escaped. Pedro says that perhaps Uriel fell off somewhere on the road while getting here. He shouts at Jamie as he told him to keep an eye on Uriel. Pedro asks Ruiz if they should return to fetch Uriel, but Ruiz says it's far enough, and from now, it's not our problem. Hereafter, all leave from there. Pedro and Jamie get back to their house. Upon reaching home, Jamie looks at the device carefully that he and his brother Pedro found in the woods nearby the corpse of the cleaner. At Ruiz's, he is with his pregnant wife and he seems to be abstracted. There's lightning striking outside his house. Right then, his wife calls him out in panic. She wants him to look at a possessed goat among other goats. To find out whether the goat is possessed or not, he fires a bullet in the air. On hearing the shooting, most of the goats run away from there, but a goat does not move from its place. Meaning, the goat is possessed for real. Ruiz's wife requests him not to kill the goat, as it will bring curse upon their family. The possessed goat challenges Ruiz to kill itself. In return, Ruiz shoots the possessed goat in the head, even if he didn't want to. As soon as Ruiz shoots the goat, his wife is possessed, and she kills her husband with a sharp axe. Later, which she kills herself with same axe. Inside his house, Jamie sees a shadow growing. Just then, the younger brother of Uriel visits Pedro and informs him that both Ruiz and his wife have been killed. Moreover, my mother also disappeared. Uriel's younger brother is terrified and wants to stay with Pedro and Jamie. Therefore, Pedro lets him stay in the saddle room. Before leaving, he advises Pedro and Jamie not to use electric lights because its shadows attract evil. Saying this, he leaves off. At dawn, both the brothers leave the house for good without taking any valuable stuff from the house, as it may also attract the evil. Pedro says, "We will go to town, pick up our kids, and get out of here." Pedro reaches his ex-wife's house where he sees Leo, the second husband of Sabrina. Leo does not let Pedro in. Therefore, he opens the door forcefully and gets inside. He begins to put off his old clothes stained with Uriel's peeves. Right then, Sabrina, Pedro's ex-wife, shows up there. She asks him to get out of her house as soon as possible. There, Sabrina's dog licked the demon-mucked clothes that Pedro just took off. Pedro goes outside and sets his clothes on fire, as they have been cursed. Pedro implores Sabrina and Leo to let him in, so that he may make them understand everything. At the precise moment, Santino, the youngest son of Pedro, gets into the scene. Pedro takes him inside and asks him to pack all of his toys and other important stuffs. Thereafter, Pedro reveals to Sabrina and her new husband that this town is about to turn into hell soon. However, Sabrina considers Pedro to be crazy and asks Leo to call the police at once. There comes Vicky, the little daughter of Pedro. Sabrina does not want Pedro to take her children away. That's why she threatens Pedro to get away from her house, or else she will call the police. Sabrina requests Pedro not to screw her happy life again. She is angry with Pedro because once upon a time, Pedro left his family in the lurch and never turned back. Just then, Sabrina's dog is possessed and bites Vicky. The dog is possessed because it had licked the demon-mucked clothes renounced by Pedro. The dog brutally killed Vicky. Santino yells and tells Leo that their dog is hurting Vicky. The possessed dog drags Vicky outside and Leo just kept on screaming. Leo and Pedro rush outside to catch the dog, but by then, the dog had disappeared. Seeing the chaotic situation, Pedro gets inside the house and tells Santino that they need to leave from there right now. Thereafter, he goes to his elder son named Jair, who is an autistic. Pedro tells Leo not to use the gun at all, as the dog has been possessed completely. However, Leo does not listen to Pedro and goes to hunt the possessed dog. Pedro chases Leo and reaches the street where he sees that Leo has shot the dog to death, meaning Leo is also cursed now. Pedro understands the gravity of situation and returns from there. He sees that Vicky has returned safe and sound. Nevertheless, Pedro knows well that it's not Vicky. Inside the house, Pedro looks for the car keys but can't find them. Therefore, he tempts Jair. If he tells him about the keys, he will get him apple ice cream. So Jair leads his hand to the car keys. Outside, Vicky reveals to Sabrina that Leo will kill her after coming home. There, Pedro escapes with his sons to safety. Just then, Leo comes in his truck and crashes into Sabrina, causing her to die painfully. Pedro sees all this but couldn't do anything about it. Hence, he gets away from there with his sons. Inside the car, Leo is injured and sees Vicky dancing happily. Pedro comes to his house and his mother is very happy on seeing her grandsons. Pedro asks Jamie if he has told anything to their mother. Jamie replies, no. Following this, all of them leave the town. On the car, grandmother tells Santino 7 important rules to remember to avoid the evil. First, never ever name the evil by its name, like Lucifer, Satan, or Azrael. Second, never use electric lights. Third, don't get close to animals. Fourth, don't have to take anything that was close to evil. Fifth, don't hurt them. Sixth, and the most important rule is that never shoot them with firearms. She could not tell the seventh rule, as her both sons were asking her to stop talking about it. On the way, Pedro receives a phone call from Sabrina, who is actually dead, but no one knows it besides Pedro. He goes outside and attends her call. Sabrina says to Pedro, "You took my children away, and I want them back. You don't have any idea what I can do to get them back." After that, Pedro tramples the phone in anger. Jamie goes to Pedro, who tells him that Sabrina is no more. Her second husband hit her with the truck, causing her to die. He says to Jamie, having tears in his eyes, "I am a coward and can't handle my life. I don't know what's going on here." Here, Pedro is losing his mind and Jamie placates him. Jamie says, "I know someone who can help us in this matter, and she lives halfway to the city." Now, Jamie introduces Pedro to Mirta, who is a kind of paranormal researcher. She candidly tells Pedro that her house has no electricity. Jamie suggests to Pedro that they should stay there for a while as they are exhausted. At night, when everyone is resting, Jair is still inside the car. Sabrina, Jair's deceased mother, approached the car and pressed her hand, stained with blood, against the window and went away, meaning she has arrived here to take her children back. Sabrina gets into her mother-in-law's room and picks up Santino and says, "I will take my children to a place where no one can harm them." Jamie wakes Pedro up and says, "Something is going on." Both rush to the room, where their mother tells them that Sabrina has made it here, but it is not her, and she is upstairs with Santino. Pedro goes upstairs and finds the soul of Sabrina there with Santino. Sabrina tells Pedro that she is taking her children back. Saying this, she jumps off the balcony holding Santino in her lap. Pedro rushes downstairs and reaches outside, where there is no one, including Sabrina and Santino. Pedro goes running to the car and asks Jair to open the door, but he didn't. Therefore, Pedro is forced to break the glass of the window and opens the door himself. He asks Jair if he is okay. Pedro goes into the woods in search of Santino. Jamie seems to be panicking. Mirta informs him that there is demon here and that is inside Jair. She asks Jamie to have a look at Jair's body. She tells him that a demon has got into his head and is trapped. I have seen many cases like that. Sometimes, demons get into humans' body but can't get control over their minds and find themselves trapped inside. Mirta reveals to Pedro and Jamie that all these events are happening because of the Rotten. Jamie says, "The Rotten is dead." Then Mirta says, "No, he is still alive. We have to find the Rotten and kill him to stop the beast from being born. The demon has just come into the womb, not into this world. Therefore, we have to abort it at the earliest." Pedro, Jamie, and Mirta go to find the Rotten, meaning Uriel. On the way, while looking for Santino, Jamie comes across Sabrina, walking ahead of his car. Jamie notices that she has killed Santino in her lap. He stops his car for a while and lets her pass by his car. Following this, he mercilessly runs over Sabrina. There, Pedro and Mirta has reached the place where Uriel had escaped from the truck while being carried here. In the woods, because of hitting Sabrina with his car, Jamie is severely injured. In the house, Pedro's mother is all alone. Just then, Jair, who had been paralyzed and autistic, is now walking on his feet and enters the room and says, "I am hungry, Grandma." Saying this, he passes by his grandmother. Seeing Jair walking, Pedro's mother is petrified. Pedro and Mirta get to the schoolhouse building, as demons like children and vice versa. They sneak into the school, and Pedro peeps through the window and finds some possessed children in the class. He and Mirta rush into the class filled with possessed children. Mirta asks the children to inform her about Uriel, but the little girl refuses to tell anything. Soon, Mirta gets out and puked, as the breath of the children was demonic. She lets Pedro know that those children will not help them. These children are helping the demon to get into this world. Just then, one of the possessed children comes out and asks the duo if they were looking for Uriel. The little boy tells Pedro that Uriel is at Teacher Cortez's house near the traffic circle. Saying this, the little boy leaves off the ground. Hence, Pedro gets on his car to reach Teacher Cortez's house. Mirta suspects and tells Pedro that the little boy is misguiding them. Within a short while, another girl shows up and tells them that Uriel is at her house. Mirta feels it in her bones that Uriel is still hiding somewhere in the school. Therefore, both of them get into an auditorium and find a stage there. Pedro begins to dismantle the stage and finds numerous corpses under it. Here, all the men were killed by the possessed children, and it was they who buried them under the stage. Mirta says, these children are not children anymore. She asks Pedro to keep on unearthing, as Uriel may be under the stage, while she prepares her equipments to abort the birth of Demon. At last, Pedro succeeds in finding the rotten Uriel under the stage. Uriel is still alive and wants Pedro to kill him. Mirta asks Pedro to pull him out of the stage quickly, as she is ready to stab the rotten in the nape with her equipment. Just then, a girl manipulates Pedro and asks him to get into the director's office, where he can find a fire axe. Pedro falls into her hoax and rushes towards the director's room. Mirta keeps on saying not to leave her alone, as the children are lying to him, but Pedro doesn't listen and goes away. He finds no axe in director's office. Apart from this, he is locked from outside by the possessed children. He sees through the window of the doors that the possessed children have brutally killed Mirta. He breaks open the door and sets himself free. By the time he came back, it was too late. Uriel is stuck in the stage. Pedro picks up the dismantled device of Mirta and falls upon Uriel. He hits Uriel on his head many times, causing him to die in the long run. With the death of Uriel, Demon has come into this world. Possessed children become very happy at the sight of the newly born demon and open the door in his reception. The demon spares Pedro's life as he brought him into this world. While leaving the auditorium, the demon makes a mark with his blood on Pedro's forehead with his 3 fingers. The newly born demon walks outside into the morning sun, being followed by the possessed children. It's morning, and the ominous night has gone by. Pedro reaches his house, where Jamie embraces him. While having the apple ice cream, Jair begins to choke, forcing Pedro to help him gulp the ice cream. Pedro opens Jair's mouth with his fingers. He notices that Jair is chalking on his mother's hair, meaning Jair has killed his own grandmother after getting possessed. This scene shatters Pedro from inside. He comes outside and collapses in grief, as his son is also possessed now. With this heartbreaking scene, this movie comes to an end.